Greetings from EPG Pathshala. In this module, I am going to discuss about public key cryptography. There are two types of cryptography, public key and second is symmetric key cryptography. Public key is often named as asymmetric key cryptography. We have already seen the symmetric cryptography. Examples are advanced encryption standard, data encryption standard. Today we are going to talk about public key cryptography. The broad aspect of public key cryptography is, in this type of cryptography, the one key would be public and other key would be private. Usually the user keeps his or her public key or encryption key as a public key. So, everyone knows about this key, but for decryption he or she uses a key that is only belongs to he or she. So, let us formally see how this cryptography algorithm works with some mathematical backgrounds. First concept is modulus. So, you all have in high school done the division. How does the division works? So, for the division what you usually do is, you are given a value that is k, which is symbolized here as k, and you usually divide k by m, which gives you a quotient plus some remainder. So, this remainder is called a modulus. How would we represent them in an equation? So, the q, the quotient which you have got is multiplied with the modulus whom you divide, plus if you do the remainder you will get the value back. If I take you to the high school, then if you divide 9 by 5, what you get as a quotient is 1 and what you get as a remainder is 4. So, I can rewrite it as 9 equal to 5 into q, that is 1 plus 4. So, this is how this equation works. So, it is a very simple equation. Once again, if we rewrite it as this, it says k by m, you take only the integer part out of it multiplied by m, and this shows you the remainder k mod m. The next concept is called congruent modulo n. The congruent relation is shown by 3 lines. You all have learnt up till now the assignment operator. In this type of cryptography, we are going to talk about the congruence relationship. How does a congruence relationship is defined? It is defined as, if you are given k and h, do a modulo operation. If the remainder comes out to be same, then k is considered to be the congruent to h mod m. If we take an example, we want to check, is 87 congruent to 3 mod 21? How would we check? First you have to do 87 mod 21. So, the simple thing is, you have to divide 87 by 21. So, 21 fours are 84. So, if you do it, the remainder would be 3. So, you get a remainder 3. If I do 3 mod 21, so if you divide 3 by 21, once again you can see it's a remainder is 3. So, if both are giving the same remainder, then according to our definition, k is congruent to h. In our case, k is 87 and h is 3. We can say k 87 is congruent to 3, but do not forget to mention the modulus. So, one more thing is clear to you, okay, in this type of cryptography we are going to use the modulo operation. Now, the question is, why we are dealing with a modulo? Because in public key cryptography we are going to deal with large numbers. As we have seen in the cryptographic operations, if we keep our numbers to be small, the brute force attack, guessing the number would be easy. That is why we deal with large arithmetics, large integers. If we want to perform operations on those large integers, then it would be very heavy operations. Modulo operation keeps these integers within limit. To prove my point, what am I trying to say? What you have observed is, if I am using modulo 21, then my number is always going to be between 1 to 20. To check the point, you can see 87 will give you 3, 3 would give you 3. Now, take an example of 73. If you divide them by 21, it would be 21 3s are 63 and the remainder would be 10. So, no matter whatever number you take, if you perform the modulo operation with 21, the result would be in the range of 0 to 20. So, this is how, even though these integers can be large, but the remaining the operations would be within the limit. So, I just cleared out why we are using the modulo operation, but the point we were discussing was congruence relation. So, you are clear, congruence is nothing but shown by 3 horizontal lines, and their two integers having same modulo number are congruent to each other, but do not forget we are talking about the modulo operation. Next question is 20 congruent to -7 mod 9? This time my right hand side I am showing you the negative number. I have a very simple question ki you all have worked with division, right? So, is quotient negative? Is remainder negative? What is your observation? While you are doing the division, the quotient can be negative, but the remainder can never be negative. Remainder is always a positive number. Now, how can we deal with this situation? So, for you the left hand side number is easy to deal with because it is a positive number. So, 20 mod 9. Now, I do not have to show you 20 mod 9 means you divide 20 by 9, the quotient would be 2 and the remainder would be 2. So, I have reflected this remainder here. Take an example of -7 mod 9. You have my words in mind that remainder can never be a negative number. So, how to convert -7 to a positive remainder? So, start with the modulo integer, whatever is the integer, multiply it by -1. As I said, quotient can be negative, plus so this gives you -9. How many numbers, positive numbers you add so that you get -7? 2. Fine. So, this is your remainder in case of negative integer. So, I think you got my point. If you have a negative number, what you have to do? You have to try to convert it to positive. How? Take a modulo, multiply it by -1, multiply it by -1, -2, so on till you get the remainder to be positive. So, -7 mod 9 again gives you 2. So, 20 mod 9 2 -7 mod 9 2. So, they are congruent. So, it is true that 20 is congruent to -7 mod 9. Now, going ahead with the modulo arithmetic, what we want to observe is, I already taught you, when you are doing modulo, if you have modulo n, the numbers are always going to lie between 0, 1, 2 up to n minus 1. Now, I am showing you the example of modulo 3. So, the numbers are going to range from 0, 1 and 2. So, you can see 0, 1 and 2, 0, 1 and 2. What we want to perform is, we want to perform the addition and multiplication. how can we perform addition and multiplication? So 0 added to the 0 will give you 0, 0 added to the 1 will give you 1, 0 added to the 2 will give you 2, 1 added to the 0 will give you 1, 1 plus 1 2, 1 plus 2 3. Now this time keep in mind we are working with modulo 3. So numbers cannot go beyond 0, 1 and 2. This time when we performed addition we got 3. So what we need to do? 3 mod 3. So it would give you 0. I hope you understand me. 3 mod 3. So you have to divide 3 by 3. The quotient would be 1, but in whole modulo operation we are interested in the remainder. Now going further, 2 plus 0 would be 2, 2 plus 1 again would be 3, 3 is beyond the limit. So we have to perform the modulo, it would go to 0, 2 plus 2 once again it is going beyond the limit, 4, 4 modulo 3 will give you 1. Now same for the multiplication, what you have to do? 0 multiplied by 0 will give you 0. So any number multiplied by 0 would result in 0. Here 1 multiplied by 0, 0, 1 multiplied by 1, it would give you 1. So it is reflected here. 1 multiplied by 2, it would result in 2, it is reflected here. 2 multiplied by 0, 0, 2 ones are 2, 2 twos are 4, 4 is out of the range because integer should be within 3, 0, 1 or 2. So we will perform the modulo operation, 4 modulo 3 would give you 1. Now what we want to observe? We want to find out the additive inverse and multiplicative inverse. To keep your idea clear, if I want to find out additive inverse, what does it say? I am given x, I want to add something to x so that I'll get the 0. So look here for the example, for 0, suppose my x is 0, what I should add to 0 so that I get 0 in, don't forget we are working with modulo 3. So 0, check the row of 0, where it is 0. So 0 added with the 0 is 0. So we can say 0's arithmetic inverse is 0. If you are clear, you can easily tell me for 1, which number gives you 0? So 1 added to 2 gives you 0. So for 1, the arithmetic inverse is 2. The same way for 2, the arithmetic inverse is 1 because it has 0. Now what about multiplicative inverse? Multiplicative inverse says if I have x, if I multiply x by multiplicative inverse, I will get 1. So given a number, find out a number with whom I multiply a given number results in 1. So take an example of 0. For 0 we do not have any number that gives you 1. So 0 does not have multiplicative inverse. For 1, what you can see is if 1 multiplied by 1, I can get 1. So for 1, the multiplicative inverse is 1. Now for 2, the multiplicative inverse is 2 because it results in 1. So check out the next slide to be clear कि 0, its additive inverse is 0, 0 does not have a multiplicative inverse. Minus k says additive inverse, this says multiplicative inverse. For 1, the additive inverse is 2, multiplicative inverse is 1. For k is equal to 2, my additive inverse is 1. Just check the previous slide, my additive inverse is 1 because it is giving 0. And for 2, my multiplicative inverse is 2 because multiplicative inverse is the one who gives 1 as a result. So you are clear what is additive and multiplicative inverse. Do not forget we prepared this table for modulo 3 operation. Now going to the public key crypto systems. This is a general block diagram of a public key crypto systems. How does it work? Suppose Bob wants to send a message to Alice. So, Bob would be having a ring which maintains the public key of the users with whom Bob communicates. So, he has a Joy, Tom, Alice, Harris's public key. How does it work? From that, Bob will pick up Alice's public key and the plain text would be encrypted with this public key. How this encryption is done will be shown in the next slide. Now, y is equal to E with whom we are doing the encryption, the public key of Alice's, and this is our plain text which we are going to deal with. This y would be sent to the sender, y would be sent by the sender, Alice would receive it, apply the decryption algorithm. This time the key that is applied to the decryption algorithm is the private key. So, there are two key terms, public key and private key. Public key is denoted by PU and A denotes whose public key we are talking about, PR denotes the private key and the suffix denotes whose private key we are talking about. To get our plain text back, encrypted text would be decrypted along with a private key and we will get the plain text output. What is the idea behind public crypto system? So, it is said to be trapdoor one way function. Trapdoor one way means if you are given P and K denotes the key, so you can apply the function on P and you get the Q. So, this is easy if K and P are known. So, for our discussion these are the two things, K and what parameters we are available with. Suppose now we want to talk about the inverse. So, we apply the inverse function to Q to get the P back. It is easy. When it is easy? When K is known and Q is known. Now, coming to the complexity of public key crypto system, if we want to perform the inverse, this is infeasible when the Q is available. Q is known, but K is not known. Now, you correlated it with the previous slide. What is known to us? Decryption, decrypted text. What is not known to us? The private key of Alice. So, we cannot get this plain text. Who can get the plain text? One who is the genuine user, genuine receiver with its public key, he can get the plain text back. How does an RSA algorithm work? So, in this module, I will just give you a brief outline about RSA algorithm steps. The details we will see in the next module, but here I would be introducing you to the terms which has been used in the RSA algorithm. So, what is the first step? Take two prime numbers P and Q. Prime numbers are the numbers who have only two divisors, 1 and number itself. Then you compute n, that is nothing but P into Q. Find out an encryption key E. What is the additional criteria? Additional criteria is GCD of 5n and E should be 1. Now, E is any number, any positive integer. I have introduced two terms GCD. GCD is greatest common divisor, and what is 5n? 5n is called the totient function. Additional criteria is whatever number you select for E, that should be in the range of 1 to 5n. If you want to calculate the decryption key, it is nothing but the inverse of E mod 5n. So, for calculating the decryption and encryption key, who plays the role? 5n. the question I have left unanswered is how to compute the phi n. What is so phi n I am explaining in a minute. C is equal to m raised to e mod n. M is your plain text, E is your encryption key. So, we are using exponent operation. This n is the original n which you computed with the help of P and Q. M is the message to be transmitted, C you get is the ciphertext. To get your plain text back, what you have to do is, given the ciphertext, make the exponent with decryption key and find out the modulo n. We started with public key and private key. So, who denotes the private key and who denotes the public key? So, in your computation whatever D and N, those are the private key, and whatever is the E and N, they are the public key. Okay. Now, in the previous slide there were two key terms, GCD and totient function phi n. First we will start with a greatest common divisor and one more term, relatively prime numbers. Greatest common divisor P and Q, considering P and Q is the largest number that divides P and Q both. Means if you want to find out 16 and 12, what we used to do, we used to write 16. What are the factors of 16? What are the factors of 12? Now, what is the greatest number that can divide both the numbers? 4. So, greatest common divisor is 4. Now, from that I want to take you to the relatively prime numbers. In cryptography we extensively use prime numbers. So, relatively prime numbers are the numbers, those have no common factors except 1. So, think about 16 and 21. So, 16 would be denoted by how? 2 into 2. So, you all know the factors of 16, you all know what are the factors. Always 1 is the factor of every number, it would be denoted by Now, according to our definition of relatively prime numbers, there are no common factors except 1, because 1 is a factor of everyone. So, we will not consider that. In this case 16 and 21 are called relatively prime numbers. The second key term was totient function, which we denoted by phi n. Here I have taken phi m. So, phi m says I want to find out all positive integers less than m, and those are relatively prime to m. One thing is clear, when I say relatively prime, the two numbers should have no common divisor except 1. So, you all know if I want to find out totient of 1, it is 1 because it is a special number, 1 is a special number. If we consider 5, 24. So, you have to consider for 524, you have to consider all the numbers So, you have to write all the numbers, those are less than . So, I am writing all the numbers, those are less than 24, 20, 21, 22, 23, and according to the definition, what we have observed is we have to count all the positive integers less than 24 and relatively prime. So, 1 and 24 they are relatively prime, 2 and 24 they are not relatively prime because 2 and 24 both has a common factor, that is 2. 3 and 24 are not relatively prime because they have a common factor. So, if you eliminate the common factors, having common factors, you will end up in 1, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19 and 23. So, count how many numbers are relatively prime and less than 24, they are 8. So, what you have observed is you have 8, so totient of 24 is 8. You got it how to compute the totient function. Now, greatest common divisor, we have seen the traditional method, find out the factor, find out the common factor, and but as I said, in cryptography we are going to use large numbers. So, for the large numbers, dividing and finding out a factor is a very difficult point. So, we will be using an algorithm that is called Euclidean algorithm for finding GCD. How does it work? Euclid's algorithm will take two numbers p and q. It would work on the base of q which we will carry forward, and the second number would be changed to p mod q. So, we will start with an algorithm p equal to p, q equal to q. If q is equal to 0, return p is equal to GCD p of q. R is equal to p mod q. Then what you have to do? You have to interchange. Q should become p and R should become q, and you have to go to step 2 till your q becomes 0. Let us take the practical example so that you better understand the point. If I want to find out the GCD between 576 and 132, how would you go ahead? 132 into 2 plus 48. So, for 576 you found out what is the remainder? 48. So, if I go back to my slide, what we are interested in is p mod q. So, this is p mod q, it gives you 48. So, next time you should carry forward the q, that is q, and the remainder. So, if you take this, you end up in 36. So, next time you have to carry forward the q and the remainder. Next time you have to carry forward the 36 and 12. So, what happens now? You have got remainder to be 0. So, if your remainder is 0, the algorithm says, if I go previously, it says if q comes to out 0, then p is equal to GCD of p and q. So, what did we get as a p? We get 12 as a p. So, GCD is 12. So, this is how you can find out greatest common divisor. As we have seen in this process, multiplicative inverse is important. So, how to find out multiplicative inverse of any number? So, for example, it is B inverse mod M. Whose inverse we want to find out? B's inverse in modulo M. So, this is the algorithm. You would start with A1, A2, A3, they would be given 1, 0 and M. So, M is reflected in A3, then you have B1, B2, B3, 0, 1, B. So, B would be reflected as B1, B2, B3. The algorithm says if you find out B3 to be 0, then A3 is GCD MB and there is no inverse. So, if two numbers are not relatively prime, that means they have a GCD and their inverse cannot be found out. If B3 is equal to 1, then return B3 saying that B3 is GCD of MB and B2 is B inverse mod M. So, the whole idea is depends on the value of B3, 0 or 1, accordingly we will find out we have an inverse or not. Then you carry forward Q, Q is nothing but A3 div B3. T1, T2 they are the temporary variables that would be reflected by A1 minus QB1, A2 minus QB2, A3 minus QB3. A1, A2, A3 will be changed by B1, B2, B3. B1, B2, B3 would be changed by T1, T2 and T3. you have to go to step number 2. If you have got B3 to be 0 or B3 to be 1, then the algorithm ends, otherwise keep on repeating the steps 4, 5, 6, 7. So, this is an example 3 inverse mode 7. So, what you can calculate, A1 would be 1, 0 and 7, B1 would be 0, 1 and 3. If you find out Q, it would be 7 mod 3, that is 2. Accordingly, according to algorithm, you have to update T1, T2, T3. You have the equation T1, T2, T3, it is nothing but A1 minus Q B1. A1, that is 1 minus Q into B1. So, T1 would come to 1. Now, what is T2? That is A2 minus Q B2. Q is 2 into B2. So, it is nothing but minus 2. Now, T3 is nothing but A3 minus Q B3. So, it comes out to be 1. So, T1, T2, T3 1. You have to carry forward A1, A2, A3 would be changed by B1, B2, B3. B1, B2, B3 would be given by T1, T2 and T3. So, according to the algorithm, if B3 is equal to 1, B3 is equal to 1, then who is the inverse? If B3 is equal to 1, B3 is the GCD and B2 is equal to the inverse. So, minus 2 is the inverse. Now, minus 2 multiplicative inverse again cannot be a negative number. So, convert it to positive number. In the beginning I taught you how to convert 7 into minus 1 plus 5. So, it will give you minus it will give you 5. So, minus 2 would be converted to the positive number 5 and 3's inverse in mode 7 is 5. You can easily verify 3 into 5. So, 15 divided by 7. So, you can see remainder comes out to be 1. Two numbers are multiplicative inverse of each other if their modulo gives the remainder 1. So, this is an exercise which I am leaving you for you. 538 mode 1737. You can, according to the algorithm, compute Q A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3. I have given a sample for you. When B3 becomes 1, B2 is the multiplicative inverse of 538. Once again we have got a negative number. You all know how to convert it to the positive number. So, B2 minus 113 mode 1737, if you convert it to positive number, it would come out to be 1624. This is a sample computation, only first step computation I have shown. Rest of the computation you can do all by yourself and verify the result. So, in this module I gave you an outline of the RSA algorithm and I explained all the mathematics that is related to RSA algorithm, that includes totient function, greatest common divisor and multiplicative inverse. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.